So there's nothing that I can say to prepare you for what I know I'm going to say next. But I thought I should give you a thumbnail sketch to try and, I'm not just going to throw you into the deep end. We're going to like wade in there together. And I'll start by telling you, my youngest brother Kai once darkly and sarcastically tweeted, "Trigger warning, the rest of your life will contain bad stuff." And in that vein, this story contains bad stuff, because first I'm going to talk about death that nobody's comfortable with, and then I'm going to talk about grief that nobody's comfortable with, and then I'm going to tell you a Zen koan that's going to make you cry. I'm going to make you cry. Did you hear that part? It's not a threat. It's a promise. Or maybe it's a little bit of a threat. Maybe it's a promise. I don't know. But don't feel bad, because I'm going to cry too. So we'll always have that together to remember this moment by. And what I want us to do is we're going to bond over this. But we're going to bond in the Norwegian stoic way, which is, this is going to happen, and then we're never going to talk about it again. And for those of you who maybe are not Norwegian, or maybe aren't stoic, I don't know what you're doing living in Fargo, but because we took over, we did. I'm going to tell you a four-line illustration from my past, 25 years ago, when I accidentally told my mom I'm bisexual. My mom said, "What did you do this weekend?" And I said, "I went to a gay dance." And my mom said, "Why would you go to a gay dance?" And I said, "Because I'm bisexual." And now there's been 25 years of silence about that. So that's how we're going to do it, folks. But then after I make you cry and I cry, I'm going to talk about blowjobs, and I'm going to end this story with a takeaway gift of a feminist insult. So women who like to insult people, get your pencils and pens ready towards the end. You know who you are. Write it down for using it later. Now, when I say feminist insult, before anybody gets a misogynistic boner, I do not mean insults against women. There's more than a sufficient number of those already in the world. So, and I would probably be the last person to ask, even if there weren't. Although, a misogynistic boner is, in fact, the hardest boner known to mankind, the longest lasting. That's just science. Think. So now that we're talking about hard things, let's talk about death. Death, when you think about people who are comfortable, I almost talked myself out of telling this story, because I started thinking about who would be comfortable listening to me talk about death. Like, I tried to imagine a room full of people comfortable with me talking about death, and I thought of a room full of undertakers and a room full of psychopaths. And as I thought about it further, I thought of like the subset of people that would create Satan's favorite Venn diagram, like necrophiliacs, serial killers, cannibals. I almost talked myself out of it, but then I realized death is not omnipresent for most of us, so we could probably make it through this story. Death isn't omnipresent like a dog humping your leg that just won't go away no matter what you do, no matter how many times you try and kick it away, or no matter what you say, it won't go away. Death is more like a bookend, if you will. Death is on the periphery, and it's like this, like, I was a fetus once, and I was this big, and as ridiculous as it seems, I was a baby, and I was this big, and then someday in the distant future, far, far away, probably when I'm sleeping, I will die, and I will become a corpse. And we don't think of ourselves that way, which is why last April, my younger brother Brian and I were both caught off guard when he died. The 20th of April last year, I woke up to 2 voicemails and several missed calls. And one of the voicemails was from the Kansas Sheriff's Department, and they left a message that said, I'm calling in regards to Brian Benson. He's been in a vehicular accident. Yours was the last number dialed on his phone. It appears that you spoke with him briefly after midnight, and if you could call back and let us know your relation, we would appreciate it. And while it is true that I did speak with my brother the night that he died, we spoke briefly at 9 p.m., so I actually was the last 2 calls on his phone. I actually did not speak to him shortly after midnight. In a great sly parting gift to me, he butt dialed me shortly after midnight and left me a 4-minute message, which was the other message that I had. And so I listened to that message, and it was my brother and an anonymous drunk person drunkenly discussing the various drunk driving laws in the various states and their varying punitive natures. And then, with no sense of irony whatsoever, my brother drunkenly got into his car and drunk drove himself into what is arguably one of the most punitive punishments for drunk driving, and that is death. But I'm not mad at him. I'm not mad because I don't get to choose how people leave me or how people leave this world. And we all have our demons that we carry like a baby on our hip that we can't possibly put down because we're afraid we're both going to cry. And as my brother once put on his Facebook page, I try not to judge because I'm a little fucked up myself. So, grief, if you've never, let me tell you about the accident. He was leaving town. He came up to a hairpin turn that he had driven hundreds of times, and he overcorrected and went airborne, came down on the nose of his car and flipped end to end, and stopped upside down. And my brother's car and my brother's corpse waited to be seen from the road. And for anybody who hasn't yet felt grief, grief is like when you're walking down a flight of stairs and unbeknownst to you, at the bottom, there's one more step that you don't know about. And so just for a second, you're falling through the air and you're confused and you're scared and you don't know what's going on. And where you thought there was solid ground underneath you, there's nothing. And sorrow is its corresponding emotion. And the best way that I can think of to describe sorrow is Dr. Bruce Banner and the Incredible Hulk. And Dr. Bruce Banner is a normal scientist, and he has a range of emotions and a job and a day-to-day routine, and then a catastrophic event occurs in his life, and after that, when he feels this one emotion, in his case anger, it swells and bursts and transforms him into something that is unrecognizable to himself and to others. And everything about him sloughs away, and he gets lost into the primacy of that singular emotion, in his case anger, and in my case sorrow. And also, like the Hulk, all of a sudden it can come across you, and you have to go through that whole transformation back again and ride the wave through. So I took my grief and I took my sorrow and I went to Kansas to be with my dead brother. And Kansas, like many states, has a law where a family member has to clean out the personal belongings of somebody who is deceased before they can write the car off for destruction. And so I was that person. I was the Viking warrior, and I put on a cape, and I became a hero in my own tragedy, and I went to my brother's car, and I put on 2 pairs of medical gloves, and I brought garbage bags. My brother lived a tumultuous life, all of it. He was very good at making bad decisions. It was his specialty. And he had recently left his wife for the second time, and so his car was very full of personal belongings. And I went to the driver's side right away because I thought, there's nothing I can see that's going to bring him back. There's nothing I can see that's going to hurt him worse. And he would do this for me. So I went there, I toughed it out, and I went right to the driver's side, and I started pulling out jeans and work boots and tennis shoes and handouts from work and insurance papers and notes about an impending divorce and a drug test that he had passed at work and pens and pencils and cards and keychains and a 6-pack that was full and a 6-pack that was empty and a whiskey bottle. And I worked my way all the way around the back, all the way around to the other side of the car. And I was almost done. I had 3 bags of stuff that was going to be sorted later. That was not going to be my job. I was only going to be the hero once. Somebody else could do the next round. And the passenger side, the entire car was catastrophically damaged. I mean, you could see that nobody made it out of that car alive. But on the passenger side, which was the last part that I was going to clean out, the roof was particularly crushed and the door was wedged open, so I had to sort of crouch down and shimmy into the wreckage. And so I did that, and I was feeling relief, and I was almost done. And so I was digging out things from underneath the seat, and I reached back further, and I reached back further, and I reached back as far as I could, and when I did, I was up, my arm was completely all the way to the back seat, and my head turned like so, and I saw the roof of the car, and it was saturated in blood. And it was 5 days after the accident, but you could see it was wet and heavy, and on the edges you could see it was tacky. And above the driver's seat, like a crown, there were pieces of my brother's skull embedded in the roof. And I did not think it then, but I realized later that I didn't get to choose, but if I could have chosen, that's what I would have picked. Because he was gone and death just lifted him weightless into the air and left behind his car and his corpse and his complicated life. So if I keep my thermoses. At least I didn't hulk out on you guys. It was possible. The violence of his death showed me the peace of his death. And if this story was a drinking game, this would be the point where I'd have to puke and rally and get back to the party because people are counting on me to get my shit together. Because right now, in this very room, there are people that are counting on me to be able to keep it together and get forward through this story. And that's the theme of my story today, which is perseverance and pushing forward, because we're all going to have difficult times. And we, as Leonard Cohen said in a beautiful song called Anthem, we'll be here to ring the bells that still can ring. And my brother lives on within me and within this story. And I want to tell you a little bit about my brother, because before my brother was dead, he was somebody else. And one of the things that he was a feminist. And he left behind 5 daughters, and he said always that it takes a real man to raise a real woman. And one time, many, many years ago, probably even before I accidentally told my mom I was bisexual, my brother and I were talking about the power of insults and why all the insults are, men get really strong, powerful insults, and women just don't. And I said, even when we were in grade school, men would get, or the boys would say, like, my dad can beat up your dad. You never heard anybody say, my mom can give birth to your mom. That wasn't a thing. It just wasn't. So, and then later, men get suck my dick, and there's nothing in the female lexicon that is comparable to that. It's powerful, it's derogative, it's sexually charged, it's, alpha, and there's just nothing that's comparable. So my brother and I decided we were going to make a feminist insult. And I'm going to end this, I kicked this off by coming up and talking about death, so I'm going to end this by insulting the audience and the judges and walking off stage, because I think that's how I'm going to nail this like a carpenter named Jesus. I'm going to... So we, together, my brother and I, made this feminist insult that you can please... Ladies, get your pencils ready. You want to write this down. Men who want to be ladies, write it down for later. Gender fluid, write it down. Men, stick with suck my dick. It's really quite effective, actually. So women, when you start this joke, you want to start out with all due respect, to show people that you're a lady. So, with all due respect, if you don't like the story about my brother, you can suck my dick. Let me go grab it out of my purse for you.